My Little Pony fans are ready to admit they have a problem. In a June 23rd article written in The Atlantic by Kaitlyn Tiffany, she explores the themes and troublesome quarters that are now brewing in Equestria, right? Trouble in Paradise. Equestria is the fantastical land in which all these little cute magical horses live in the My Little Pony universe. Welcome back to another episode of Getting Up Raw, and in this segment, if you're new to this channel, we talk about sociological, political, and cultural topics that allow us to engage in some sort of civil discourse and discussion, open up a conversation, and try to learn something from each other. And in this episode, we're getting up raw with bronies, which is a subgroup, an adult fandom that exists within the My Little Pony universe. And if you're not familiar with My Little Pony, it is a show that is geared towards children, but over the years has garnered a massive following among men, among adult men, mostly white men, that kind of, they use it as a sort of wholesome escapism, right? I think that's the word that they use. And I get that, I used to watch Hannah Montana back in the day, right? I used to suffer from a lot of anxiety and still do. And that show just offered me wholesome escapism. Something about Miley Cyrus going, Daddy say what? I don't know. That shit just made me laugh as a kid. Not really as a kid. I was already technically an adult when the show was on. But it gave me that wholesome escapism that I was looking for. So I get it. So in no way, shape, or form am I judging anybody, nor should anyone on this channel or in the comments judge anybody who is a brony or who is a fan of the My Little Pony series. So having said that, let's talk about the Nazi problem that exists in this show, okay? Here we go. The author starts by saying that My Little Pony fans primarily express their enthusiasm for the show by sharing their own cartoon drawings of the main characters. So this is true. And look, I go to Comic-Con every year. I've been going every year since I was 12 years old. And within the last 10 years, started seeing a lot more of this brony movement. And their thing is they draw art. Right? They make these little illustrations and they post it on forums. One of those forums, or the big My Little Pony forum that exists, is called Derpibooru. That's what it's called. Derpibooru. And before that, they posted everything that they made on a platform called 4chan. So I don't know if a lot of you remember 4chan. Some of you may be too young to remember it, but it was very big in the 2010s, and it was arguably one of the most influential social media platforms that were arguably one of the most influential underground social media platforms ever created. It was like a combination of Discord and Reddit and Tumblr, right? It was this culmination of just nasty memes. I believe Dank was birthed from 4chan, trolls came from 4chan, and bronies came from 4chan. That's their origin, right? They had their own massive, I don't want to say breeding ground, but it was a breeding ground because that's where it really caught wind. But that's where they gathered and they spoke about their fandom and they shared their art. And now here we are 10 years later talking about a sort of parasitic entity that existed back then and just manifested into the disgusting cancer it is today, right? And that's this whole white supremacy movement within the My Little Pony universe, which I don't know how you can be a fan or a self-proclaimed brony while still harboring any sort of racist qualities or discriminatory qualities, because the show and the main characters, from my understanding, boast nothing but love and compassion, right? These are little magical horsies, right? I mean, that's the overall ethos of the premise, right? Love and compassion and rainbows and everything is magical. So I don't really know where they get off being Nazis, But let's go further into what the author has to say here. And this is actually the main point of my video, aside from offering a background story as to what's been going on in this little particular niche of fans, I guess. I do want to talk about the issue this brings up with freedom of speech. So freedom of speech, obviously a very important just a very important democratic quality that exists in free countries and free worlds. And if you're very fortunate to have it or live in a place that does have it, which is most of the world, it's a great thing. But where do we draw the line between hate speech and freedom of speech, right? To what extent are you allowed to say what you want to say without suffering or receiving any sort of repercussions, be that socially or legally? So I'm just going to give a quick quote here from the author, or from the writer. For years, this has been the status quo in the world of My Little Pony, and she's talking in regards to racism. In supposed deference to principles of free speech and openness on the internet, the presence of self-described Nazis within a fandom that idolizes compassion-oriented cartoon characters has become a coolly accepted fact. So the community has sorted itself largely into two camps: those who think anything goes as long as someone finds it funny, and those who would rather ignore the toxic elements and admit that not everything is perfect. So that's interesting. Yes, if you see something you don't like, you can brush over it or keep scrolling. I totally understand that. Some people can't do that. Some people, it's extremely very hateful to live in a time, like 2020 in the 21st century, and have to see Nazi propaganda on drawings that are, depicted primarily for a children's show. You know what I'm saying? Like, your chances are, if you're on these forums, you're not a child, but doesn't necessarily say you deserve to see hate speech, right? And I get the whole concept of just keep scrolling, but there has to be a line. Listen, on the internet, there are lines drawn in everything. There are lines drawn in writing. There are lines drawn in video, in pornography, right? You can't just watch anything you want. You can't just make anything you want, right? There are reasons why lines are drawn, because they're meant to protect us as people, and they're meant to help us advance as society, right? So if you're out there spewing toxicity, right, on a My Little Pony forum, that shouldn't be allowed. And that's my personal opinion, right? Everyone's entitled to their own opinion, and I guess that's the true essence of what I want this episode to be about. I'm curious to see what you guys think about freedom of speech. And we're just using the My Little Pony and Brony as an outlet, or as a means to sort of engage in this conversation. At what point is it okay to say, listen, enough is enough? Or at what point is it never okay to say enough is enough? You should be able to say whatever you want without suffering any repercussions on a legal standpoint. I'm curious to see what you guys think about that. That's the main question. But let me go on a little bit about My Little Pony, because this whole topic is just absolutely fascinating to me. Here's a quote directly from the article again. Derpibooru has become a playground for the right-wing posters who could upload their art. And this comes from Blake, a 27-year-old musician and a My Little Pony fan known as Wootmaster in the fandom spaces. He said that around the same time, a blog called My Nationalist Pony started attracting a readership. Its author, who was known as a Buttercup Dew, wrote at length about My Little Pony as a subculture, as implicitly white as NASCAR, country music, and the Republican Party. And through their little sub-forum, they were able to spread more white supremacist and racist content. So this is interesting. This has been kind of a brewing in the My Little Pony universe. It's been happening for some time. I've always heard of it, even in the the Comic-Con show floors. Every time you see bronies, little whispers and jokes would spread around, like, I wonder how many of them are white supremacists, which, obviously isn't fair to say, because a lot of people are not, right, in this particular fandom. but a lot of people are. So I guess my point is that this sort of reputation precedes them and has existed for quite some time now. On June 4th, the owners of Derpibooru tweeted a statement in support of Black Lives Matter. So the reason why this is garnering so much light right now, obviously, is because of the whole sociological climate that we find ourselves right now as a world, right? What we're going through, this giant movement of Black Lives Matter, and people finally adopting the concept that enough is enough when it comes to racism and when it comes to police brutality. So, it goes without say that the owners of Derpibooru have sort of turned a blind eye to this whole white supremacist movement going on in their channel or on their forum. They had to say something, So they did put out a statement, and the statement reads, or rather, the statement doesn't read. They sent out a statement. They sent out a statement supporting Black Lives Matter, and they also announced a new site-wide policy. They banned uploading images that were created for no reason other than to incite controversy, and removed images making fun of the protest. They did not ban expressions of racism. So this is actually very interesting because. I guess it's the business that they're running or the advertisements that are on their site is so lucrative enough that they don't want to lose any sort of traffic coming to the site. And if they're willing to go as far as to not call out racism, that says a lot about your platform and how much hate actually exists within the space, right? And they also mentioned that the images that they're removing will be removed just temporarily and then put back as I want to find the direct quote that they say, as an artifact of the moment, right? And that kind of ties into the whole statue and monument issue that's a brewing in the country, right? People say, listen, it's our history. Leave it as an artifact of the moment. And we've advanced so much as a society now that we can call out that person for who he is or who he was and move on with life. And listen, in my opinion, I don't think that should be the case. If someone sort of stood for or harbored any sort of racist tendencies or was a slave owner or was a violent genocidal colonizer, they shouldn't be commemorated in any sort of way. But I'm always, open to hear other perspectives on that matter. But that's kind of what's going on here. People are temporarily taking out images off their forums and gonna put it back sneakily, like probably a year later or a few months later. They're doing so much to protect their racist demographic, but not enough to protect those that are being marginalized. And this is the reality of the situation that exists. And I thought this article was interesting enough for me to talk about and kind of pass it off to you guys to see what you guys think about the whole conundrum we find ourselves in with freedom of speech. And I get it. There is the whole idea or concept of the slippery slope, right? People love to bring up the slippery slope. At what point is enough enough? If you start telling people that they can't say what they want to say on the internet, eventually you're going to absolutely absolve your right to freedom of speech. And like I said, there are lines drawn in any outlet, right? In art, within reason, right? So, a big one being, pornography. Imagine if there weren't lines drawn there. The internet would probably be a lot nastier than it already is. So these sort of things these illustrations or writing stories, because there are fanfics and there are obviously pictures that are being posted to these forums that depict nothing but hatred, right? And I've seen a couple of these pictures. I don't want to gain or put them up here just to. I don't want to advertise them. You know what I'm saying? But there are pictures that are depicting, horses in Third Reich uniforms, right? And there are pictures of these little ponies at lynches, right? And I think somehow the zebra has been sort of adopted as a sort of minority within Equestria, within the My Little Pony universe. So there'll be like zebras being lynched, or there'll be zebras in concentration camps, and it's some really horrifying shit. And it's kind of hard to believe that it exists in a universe, first of all, that's titled My Little Pony, and I guess in a universe that just overall is supposed to emit compassion and love and magic. And I don't know. Let me know what you guys think about the whole concept of freedom of speech. Curious to know what you guys are going to say. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. I hope I was able to serve justice in terms of, I tried this whole new thing where I let you guys kind of choose the topic. I kind of narrow it down to 2 after kind of like just perusing what's going on around the world and what's trending. And I think I'm going to start doing this now where I leave the decision up to you guys. Since you're the ones that are watching the content, you should be more in control of what it is I'm going to talk about. And then again, sometimes I'm going to choose what I want to talk about because I'm my own person and I have my own opinions and ideas. And I'm kidding, but yeah, occasionally I'll choose the topic myself. But I think from now on, I'm gonna narrow it down and have you guys choose it because that was kind of fun too. Whoops, I'm kicking my monitor. Anyway, thank you so much for watching this episode of Getting Up Raw, and I look forward to talking to you guys. Please like and subscribe. I appreciate the love. Nothing but love. Peace.